Hi, I'm James from the Icon Map team. In this video, I'm going to show how we can create a filled or Choropleth map using the Icon Map catalog capability. This means that instead of having to go off and source our boundary data, our shape data from external sources, we can use the inbuilt layers inside of the Icon Map catalog in Icon Map itself, and then join those areas back to our PowerBI data to use conditional formatting to colour them based on values in our data. So in this example, I'm using some open crime data for England and Wales. So quick introduction to the data here. We've got the month that the crime occurred. We've got the census area known as the LSOA, lower layer super output area. We've got the local authority. We've got the type of crime and the number of crimes that occurred in that month, in that census area of that type. So let's jump back to our report canvas, and now I'm going to add on Icon Map onto my report. In this case, I'm using Icon Map Slicer, but everything I'm going to show applies equally to Icon Map Pro as well. Now, before I can start bringing in my shape data, I need to drag on the fields for my data set. And in order to create this Choropleth map, I'm going to need two fields in Icon Map populated. Now we're going to draw data at lower super output area level, census area level. So I'm going to bring on the LSOA code into the ID field because that's the granularity of the geospatial objects on my map. And then I also need to tell Icon Map how it's going to join from PowerBI data to the shapes inside of the catalogue. So I'm also going to drag the LSOA code into the feature reference field. Now we've still got a warning showing here, and that warning's telling us that we don't have the appropriate data configuration to draw circles on the map. And the reason it's telling us that is because circle layers are turned on by default. So I'm just going to turn those off. In fact, we're not going to use any of these built-in data layers because we're going to source our geospatial data from the catalogue. So let me click the toggle switch here to turn on the Icon Map catalog feature. I can then say I want to add a new layer from the catalogue. And what we want to add is our lower layer super output areas, our LSOAs. So I can search for that in the catalogue. You'll see we've got a few matching results. Some of these already have data mapped to them, such as the the Welsh index of multiple deprivation that shows deprivation across Wales at the LSOA level. But in my case, I just want the plain boundary layer. Now you can see these LSOAs are quite detailed, but with Icon Map Catalog, I'm able to zoom right in without losing those complex boundaries. So this is a layer I want. We've got some summary information here and also a link back to the original source if we want to go off and find out what the values are behind all of these and import them into the model. But I've already got the codes that we need in my PowerBI dataset. So I'm going to click Configure. And now we can go through and control how our layer appears and behaves. So in terms of formatting, because I'm going to override the formatting here with PowerBI's conditional formatting, I'm just going to leave it as solid color. I maybe might reduce the transparency a little bit. I'm going to scroll down past the formatting section and expand out data binding. Now, these are all of the fields that are available in the catalog layer. Now, if I click on one of these features here, it will show you the fields available and the associated values for the feature on the map that I've clicked on. So you can make sure that you're picking the right field that matches your PowerBI data. In my case, it's this LSOA 21 CD field, the lower super output area code. And then the only other option that I'm going to choose in here is to hide unmatched features. So it's not going to show any of the features in my catalog layer that I don't have PowerBI data for. So let me click Add Layer and Apply Changes. And at this point, it will now load that layer onto my map. and attempt to join all of those census areas, the LSOAs, back to my Power BI data. Now you'll notice a few interesting things on here. First of all, we've got some holes, and we've also got the entirety of Wales missing. Now the reason for this is there are actually more than 30,000 census areas across England and Wales, but Power BI by default limits visuals to only showing 30,000 items at a time. So what we can do to get around that is to click on the formatting options here, expand out data layers and go to the data rows section and increase that limit in increments of 30,000, and I know that 60,000 will easily cover it. So once I've turned that on, it should now show all the census areas that we've got data for. So now we've got Wales showing, and the only gaps we've got are around Manchester here, where I happen to know that we don't actually have any data for. And then next thing I can do is add on a slicer onto my map, and then I can pick a particular local authority area and the map will auto zoom to the census areas just for that particular local authority. And you can see I can zoom all the way in and out without losing all of that fine detail. Next thing I want to do though is change from having a solid green colour to using Power BI's conditional formatting. So that's simply a question of heading back to Icon Map's formatting pane, and if I expand out Catalogue, you'll see now that we've got a new section for that layer that we've added, and I can go down here and choose the FX button to use a gradient formatting based on the number of crimes. So I'll just do a simple one from light blue to dark blue. And I can change the outline colour here as well. And now I get my field map or my Choropleth map showing the number of crimes in each of these local authority areas that I select. And then if we need to, we can go back and tweak the layers here. So for example, if I wanted these to be extruded in 3D based on the amount of crime, I can scroll down the formatting options and say that I want the extrusions turned on. It will show them at a fixed height of 1,000 meters, but then you'll see that we get that extrusion height option here in conditional formatting, so I can then bind it based on the number of crimes, and then I get my LSOA areas also showing in 3D. So there we go, a really quick guide on how to create a field map using Icon Map Catalogue inside of Icon Map. And of course it's fully interactive as you'd expect. I can add on a bar chart by the number of crimes. I can click on these and it will update the formatting based on that particular crime type, or I can click on a particular census area and it will update the charts and the rest of the report based on the area I've clicked on. If you're using Icon Map Pro here, just be careful that you've enabled edit interactions to cross filter rather than cross highlight in order for that to work properly. But there we have it, a fully featured, very detailed census area level map of the UK crime.